And the case is still getting a lot of attention on the internet. I want to bring in ABC News investigative reporter Olivia Rubin and legal analyst Tre Lovell to answer some of the top questions people have been asking since that verdict came down. So, Olivia, the top searches on this case are who killed John O'Keefe and what happened to John O'Keefe. I know you can't answer those questions, but what would the process look like if the state were to reopen this investigation and see if they find another suspect here?
Well, look, they'd have to go back through, and that's a tall order because remember, this was years ago. They're not going to be able to go back to the scene and find new physical evidence. Well, look, never say never, but how many times has it rained there? How many times has it snowed at the scene? A lot of the evidence that they could re-look for has been washed away. Again, they still have a lot of the physical evidence that they collected at the time. They could retest it, look for other DNA, look for other fingerprints, go back to some of the people they spoke to originally, re-interview the people in the house. They certainly could do it if they wanted. But again, a lot of people, it seems, have bought into Karen Read's defense theory, and that seems to be why this case got so much popularity, which is that there was someone else that committed this crime, possibly someone, as Karen Read's team has indicated, was inside of the house at the time. But again, it would be a tall order at the time, and we've heard Matt especially talk about how much money has already been spent on this case, on these two trials that essentially resulted in a drunk driving charge, a drunk driving conviction, excuse me. So again, to go back through, there's allegations of misconduct, though there are no real concrete evidence of that. Could an alternate team come in? Again, lots of questions, but seems tall.
Tre, unlike in her first trial, the jury reached a verdict here that Karen Read was not guilty of these higher charges of murder and manslaughter, so she can't be tried again criminally. But she is facing a civil suit now from John O'Keefe's family. What are you watching for there?
So that's going to be completely different. You know, a civil suit, there's a much lower standard beyond its preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. She will be forced to testify. She doesn't have the right against self-incrimination in a civil trial. And so that's going to be a very different trial. And as you may remember with the O.J. Simpson, he was found not guilty criminally, but he was found liable civilly for $33 million. So it does happen where you may not get a conviction, but you will prevail in a civil suit.
Now, the defense argued that Read was the victim of a cover-up. So now that she's been acquitted, can Karen Read sue the Commonwealth or the police or anyone else involved in this case?
Very difficult. You know, there's immunity that attaches to the prosecution and to the police officers to do an investigation. Somehow, maybe if it's a violation of her civil rights and they were acting outside the scope of their jobs, and a couple of exceptions, but it's very difficult to do that. I would assume Karen Read is going to take the win and just start to live her life.
And Olivia, the last big question I want to tackle with you was about not the verdict itself, but the reaction to it. That giant scream from the crowd. A lot of people are asking, how does Read have so many supporters? So how did she amass this following throughout the course of these two trials?
Well, it really seems, and I touched on this when we were speaking in that first question, it really seems that people clung to this narrative that her defense team weaved throughout this trial, that she was being set up and that there was some sort of a cover-up going on amongst police to try to frame someone. That's not a story that you hear every day. And the way that Karen Read's team was able to take certain evidence from the case or lack thereof, you know, small things like why didn't they search the house? That's something that really resonated with people. And again, anecdotally, I'm in Boston frequently. You hear people talking about the case. There was also no smoking gun here. It was a real case of did she or didn't she? People had differing opinions at times. They could think that she did it and not understand how someone could think that she didn't do it. So it was a real debate for some and a real sort of rallying cry for others about what they felt was real misconduct here.
All right, Olivia Rubin, Tre Lovell, thank you both.